here, there's not really gonna be.
You guys are in the shot of, in that video, so you should be good. Yes. Yep.
Hi, David. How are you? Hi, Jessica. Good. How are you? Give it to me.
Go dogs.
Hmm?
Go dogs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's where I went to undergrad too, so.
I did too.
Yeah. Wait, you were probably there after me, long after me.
I graduated in '04.
Okay. Yep, you were there long after me.
Yeah.
I graduated in '83.
Okay.
So the town was really nice then. You know, I don't know, it seems like it's changed a lot.
It's been a while since I've been down there, but I think by the time I got
Is it
there,
double or triple?
some of the things
Okay.
that the school was known for,
Yep, that works.
Party
party
school
wise,
and
it
all
had
that.
kind of settled down. And,
Mhm.
I mean, it was still fun for me, right? Like,
I'm glad you checked.
Yeah, well, I
I'm
was
a
there
early
when,
bedtime person.
I was there when 2 of the Halloweens went on, and that was insane.
Yeah,
It's like, no, thank you.
yeah.
I don't want to be in this mass of people
Yeah.
doing weird things.
Yeah.
So quite interesting, but it's beautiful down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up about 30 miles south of Cultivating,
Oh,
in
where-
the Jonesboro area.
Really? Okay, because when my folks used to live on Kentucky Lake, so we would go down that way and then go Murfreesboro down 147,
Uh-huh.
right? And down and by through in Jonesboro and then hook up to 24 and, you know, that way. So it was a nice visit through town every, pretty frequently, but
Yeah.
they don't live down there anymore, and so, just, yeah, it's few and far between when I get down into the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wearing a Salute shirt too since it was casual day, but I decided to wear my Piper shirt instead.
So they don't mistake you for a SIUC
Yeah.
employee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to our session. Today we're going to talk about, first I'm Jessica Derhake, Director of Labor and Employee Relations. And this is David.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Ziebler, Director of Organization and Employee Development. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about the power of positive psychology or cultivating happiness and meaning at work.
Absolutely. And Jessica's going to be leading today. I am her color commentator. This is a partnership between Human Resources and the Center for Human and Organizational Potential. As you know, if you've been here in some of our previous sessions, we're going to do this today. We've done some before, and we're going to continue to do some throughout the rest of the year. We are very excited to be partnering and bringing out some good content. Please remember to sign up for all the remaining series, presentations, offerings that we have. Visit our Hive website or contact Kathy Canham or Courtney
Actually, it
Morgan.
doesn't. I'm surprised. I'm shocked at how low my blood pressure is.
Uh-oh.
Real quick, could everybody mute?
Yep, please mute. We heard we heard that you're shocked. That sounds like you want to be muted. Okay. So as I was saying, we had some information up on our Hive website page. And is it a website page? Is it a page? Is it a website? I don't know. It's on the Hive. Visit. It's a page. It's a page.
Yes.
PAGE. There you go. We have plenty to offer. We're putting more stuff on there. We're trying to make sure that folks know how to contact us and take advantage of our services. So thank you so much, and don't forget to fill out the evaluation forms. And let's go, Jessica. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, David. So before you do a thing, you have to know what that thing is. We're going to start by defining what positive psychology is. So it is a study of human strengths. That is the most succinct way to put it. It examines the qualities that allow individuals and communities to flourish. If you have any sort of biology or background in nature, you would understand that humans are pack animals. One of our, or probably our best strength that has allowed us to become an apex species is our ability to work together. And our ability to work together is generally based on behaviors that are known as pro-social behaviors. So the ability to get along well with others, the ability to connect, to form relationships, to get past setbacks together, to have a shared goal. These are all things that put us at the top of the food chain. So positive psychology plugs right into that concept by focusing on what are those pro-social behaviors and how can we expand them, how can we build on them, specifically in this context, to help us individually to be happier and more resilient, especially at work, which takes up the majority of our lives. So positive psychology focuses on appreciating those positive aspects as well as defining them and being able to point them out and grow them as they happen.
Jessica, I'm so glad that you pointed this out and started this way. What I really like about positive psychology is that while traditional psychology may often study and focus on mental illness, challenges and obstacles that someone would face from, again, a psychological level, positive psychology really focuses on, well, that which is positive, that which is the good part of life and what you're able to accomplish and what makes happiness happiness. It seeks, again, like you said, to build on the human strengths and the virtues that improve overall quality of life. And one of the key figures is a gentleman by the name of Martin Seligman, and he put forth this PERMA model, right? It's an acronym. We work in academics, we work in healthcare. Acronyms are huge. So PERMA means positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement, right? So if you focus on these essential elements of well-being, and again, they're positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement, you have much better of a chance of becoming that person who is satisfied, who is cultivating happiness, and who has more meaning in the work life and or life outside of work that they have.
That's exactly right, David, and I'm glad that you brought up mental health, mental wellness programs and resources. So if you've ever engaged in therapy or any other mental wellness resource, you would know that they generally focus on trauma, resolving the negatives, resolving the things that maybe have embedded themselves into your psyche in such a way that it's constantly being triggered and brought back up. So what I like about positive psychology is that once you have worked through those traumas, those negatives, those horrific experiences that continue to come back and haunt us, there's still a void, right? Maybe you have healed from that trauma, but what do you replace it with? And positive psychology answers that question. We're replacing those negatives with something that helps you to continue to grow, continue to build, not just heal, but thrive. So a lot of traditional psychology has focused on things like learned helplessness within the trauma world. So learned helplessness is a phenomenon where people feel unable to change a situation, and as we know, trauma happens when something is too much, too fast, too bad, and you can't escape. So when you're in a place that something terrible is happening and you have no escape, that is where learned helplessness comes into play. It leads to a sense of powerlessness, a sense of, or a lack of motivation to even try. Oh, whatever I do, it's just going to fail. These are the types of comments that people make who have that learned helplessness. Another really important aspect of this psychology is focused on explanatory styles. I remember this from Psych 101 class, where you talk about, do people explain bad things as being an internal problem or an external problem? So the example that I remember from college is you park at a grocery store, you go into the store, you come out, and boom, there's a big ding in the side of your car. So what do? Do you blame yourself and say, oh, I shouldn't have parked there, I've caused this? That would be the internal explanatory style. Or do you say, what stupid jerk did this? That's an external explanatory style. Or if you're anything like me, you often yell at inanimate objects because of course it's their fault that they broke. So it turns out that is actually the healthier explanatory style, to have that external, outside of yourself, explanatory style. Now that doesn't mean that we get to just blame everybody else for everything, but when the situation is neutral, there's no clear cause. Do we explain it as something that was a failure of ourselves or a failure of our environment?
That's pretty powerful stuff, and this whole presentation is about, again, creating and cultivating happiness and meaning at your workplace. But let's be honest, you talked about that a little bit, Jessica, that our work is predominantly our life. I mean, let's face it, right? We're at work 8, 9, 10 hours. We see emails come through, we answer them, we take phone calls on the weekend, even maybe on vacation. Maybe that's just me, but I don't think so. And that means that our work becomes a very big part, if not the largest part of our life, whether good, whether bad. However, what I'm reminded of is that how you see the world, how you believe it is, will dictate whether or not you experience it as a positive or as a negative thing, right? And what you tell yourself, the thoughts that you have, the speech that you create is what you experience. I hit that car, it's my fault. Well, how about this? How about I hit that car, everything's gonna be okay. Accidents happen. I'll figure it out, right?
That leads into temporary versus permanent explanatory styles. So thank you, David.
You're welcome.
So an optimistic style, obviously, we just talked about, attributes things to either an external or an internal force, where there are 3 more categories of explanatory styles. So the next category is, do you see it as being temporary or permanent? I know I myself have a tendency to have a setback and think, well, that's it, everything's ruined. That's a very permanent explanatory style. I like to make it even spicier by adding some anxiety to that. Well, now this is going to snowball into the end of the world, obviously, all because my printer ran out of ink. So then the third piece of explanatory style is whether you believe that cause is global or specific. So Mine is very global. Oh, everything's gonna break, nothing works, I'm never gonna be able to finish my work, blah, 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 versus this particular printer needs this particular ink, this is a temporary problem, and it's the printer's fault, not mine. So that is the healthiest way to view that situation. So like David said, the stories that we tell ourselves are incredibly important to our perception of the facts. And especially in my role, if you've ever heard two different people's accounts of the same incident, you may hear two very, very different stories, even though they're both true. And a lot of that can be attributed to those explanatory styles and the stories that we tell ourselves. So David brought up Martin Seligman. That is an American psychologist, educator. He's written a lot of books, and he talks a lot about learned helplessness and explanatory styles, and then how to plug those into your job, the impact that it can have on your work. So the negative explanatory styles can actually demotivate you, make you unhealthy or less healthy, and negatively impact your performance. So if you believe that there's just no way to get this work done, you're right. And if you believe otherwise, you're also right.
You know what's crazy is that I see this happening in almost every arena that I work in here at the organization. Whether it's a clinical or non-clinical division, people who talk about not only, well, how this isn't going to work, this can't work, this won't work, we're not going to figure this out. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then activities that ensure that those words become a reality begin to surface, right? So relationships break down, positive outlook breaks down, it doesn't even exist. People become frustrated, people become detached, and when people are frustrated and detached and their enthusiasm and willpower is gone, it's leached from them by this negative self-talk, right? This negative group talk, then yeah, no one's gonna figure things out together. But when it becomes the opposite, right? You know what? We don't know what we're gonna do, but I think if we sit down and talk about this a little bit more, we're gonna figure it out. You know what? We're all tired right now, but I know that we're smart, and I know that if we sleep on it, do a little bit of reading, maybe a Google search, talk to some of our network, we can come up with something, right? And I know that we're smart enough to feed off of each other and get this done. It's gonna be okay. Then the self-fulfilling prophecy works in our favor. Then it will work out. It's so hard to sometimes flip the switch from learned helplessness to learned optimism. However, once you begin speaking differently, the momentum shifts pretty quickly. So you have to stop, recognize what's happening, and then replace that undesirable behavior with the more desirable behavior that you want to learn and really make a part of you.
David, have you ever heard of the power of yet?
Oh, yeah. Well, this all comes from the growth mindset, right? In the work of this wonderful psychologist, Carol Dweck, right? The growth mindset, Carol Dweck. It's not that I'm not good at algebra as a sophomore in high school. It's that I'm not as good at algebra as I want to be yet.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's something that I have actually started using with my children. Recently, I had a conversation with my son. We had just bought him a new bicycle, and he said, "But Mommy, I can't ride a bike." And so we taught our children the power of yet. Honey, you can't ride a bike yet. So thinking in that context, what are we saying? We're saying nobody can just automatically do it. You have to practice. So we also have to practice positivity. We have to practice our growth mindset. A lot of people will say, oh, that's just the way I'm wired, I'm just a negative person, or some iteration of that. Well, you're just a negative person so far, but if you practice positivity, and we've learned this with all of our other trainings up to this point, The more you practice something, the more neural pathways the brain forms, and the easier it is to continue doing so. That's literally what practice is. So how do you practice positivity? Oh, yeah, good. To me, I think the best way to practice positivity is with gratitude. And this is another thing that I practice with my children. So every night, we have bedtime stories and all of the normal things, but I also make sure I ask both of my children, what was the best part of your day? Because I want them to remember the best parts. I don't ask them anymore what happened today, because inevitably the first thing they say is, well, I got in a fight with Susie or Bobby, or if it's my son, God only knows. So I have them practice remembering the best parts of their day, their highlights. And I found a really kind of an interesting way to talk about those. So we all know what triggers are, and we're trying to replace that language. It's a very violent language. Replace it with activation. So you're not triggered, you're activated. But what's the opposite of being triggered or activated? So it was pretty cool. If you can flip to the next one. The opposite of a trigger is a glimmer. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And pretty recently too. I don't want to act like I'm the cool guy that knew everything. Yeah, no, I just learned about this about a month ago. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so a glimmer is exactly the opposite of a trigger. So think of a trigger, maybe a sight, a sound, a smell, any sort of sensory input that just takes you right back to a really bad place that you don't want to be. But have you ever experienced maybe sitting outside and seeing a really beautiful butterfly, and it takes you out of what's around you, and all you're thinking in that exact moment, you're fully present, and you're thinking, wow, that's really beautiful, that's really amazing. So any sort of reminder or trigger for a positive experience, feeling, event is called a glimmer. And the more that we can cultivate those, the more that we can recognize those, because it's not that some people are having more than others, it's that some people are recognizing them more than others.
Absolutely. It's a rewiring of your brain and what you're looking for, right?
Absolutely.
If you're looking for the bad in the world and you see the world as a bad place, that's what you will see. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking for the good in the world and you believe it to be good and that there is opportunity and there are good people and good things do happen, right? That there is beauty to be found, you will find it. It will come to you. It's just the way that it is. And I really like the fact that you brought up how, two people can experience the same moment but have two very different stories. I see this happening with my children and my family and people I watch movies with. We watch the same movie, right? But then after the movie, we start talking about it, and sometimes you see that they watched a completely different movie than you did. Mm-hmm. The heroine or hero in their eyes is kind of an anti-hero, a villain. You might see, well, there's some struggles there, but they were trying. No, they were bad, or they were good, or they weren't worthy of the attention they got. It's fascinating to see that thing. But when we see the good in the world, yes, it allows us to be grateful for what we have. And at the end of the day, it truly can't always get worse. There's always something to be grateful for. And happiness is strongly tied to gratitude, right? The sense of being aware that you are happy for what it is that is in your life, right? The meaning at work, well, we're very fortunate and lucky that we all work at a medical school, right, that produces great research, that does great patient care, and that makes a difference in this world. You are a part of that no matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you clean the floors or if you're the one replacing the organ on the operating table. You have a strong, noble purpose by working in this organization. So you can always connect with that, right? That meaning is there. And then, right, you can always make the life that you have better by looking to do things for other people. So some good things to do to improve gratitude is journaling, writing down the 3 good things, and an exercise that you can do while you're journaling, not just what you're grateful for, is just mentioning what are 3 good things today, 3 good things about work, 3 good things about my team, 3 good things about my life, right? I believe that gratitude also extends then to doing something nice for others. There's someone in your work life who you are appreciative of. Write them a thank you note, right? Let them know. And it doesn't have to be a love letter per se or a professional appreciation letter. It could say, Courtney, I really appreciate you, period. Thank you for being awesome. And I mean that. It's an official notice, right? I really appreciate the things that you do. You're fantastic. Thanks for being such a wonderful teammate. Do those things, right? Because when you give the gift of appreciation and recognition, you are grateful to that person. You not only are aware of what you're grateful for, but you've done something good. It's a 2-for-1. It's a 2-for-1. And in fact, I would rather have you go around spreading gratitude and positivity and recognition all around the office, which is called thank you or gratitude rounds, okay? Than going around spreading vitriol and negativity and, let's say, negative gossip. We don't like the negative Ned or the negative Nancy who goes around the office and goes from cubicle to cubicle saying, did you hear? And they're doing this, and I can't believe this is broken and they haven't fixed it yet. Ew. Ew. Right? So counteract that and make yourself happy and everybody else happy by doing the opposite.
Absolutely. And this is backed by science. You know, if you're anything like me, you hear these concepts and think, oh yeah, maybe that works for them, it won't work for me because I have that explanatory style that needs a little bit of work. But once I saw that there was true research backing these concepts of gratitude, of ripple effects within social situations, you know, a lot of the research points back to what's known as the polyvagal theory. And that is very complicated and way above, you know, my level, but the simplest way that I can understand it is that it simply describes the nervous system state of whether or not it perceives a threat. So does your nervous system perceive a threat right now, or does it perceive safety? And if we can hack that system, and because trauma hacks that system, trauma tells your polyvagal system that you're being threatened at all times, and we've probably all experienced that at one point or another. You know that you're stressed, everything feels worse, everything feels more global, and it's almost like you're primed to feel less positive emotions. You're primed to feel that anxiety, that negativity, that depression, that demotivation. So if we can hack that polyvagal system to tell it, hey, you're safe, you're good, you're okay, nothing's coming for you, then you can start to turn that around. Now, I like what David said about applying that positive psychology at work. So celebrating successes, that is an easy way to just start practicing, changing that mindset, expressing gratitude to others. These are all things, sorry, thank you, Courtney. These are all things that you can do for your team, for your colleagues, and it creates a ripple effect within the office, because the more you practice it, if you're practicing it, especially if you're practicing it out loud, other people are also practicing it, whether they want to or not. So if every time I walk into Courtney's office, I say, Courtney, I'm so thankful for everything that you do. You are absolutely amazing. Eventually, that's going to stick. Eventually, when Courtney sees me, she's going to think of those positive expressions, or even just physically feel more at ease. So if we can start to break down some of those natural anxieties, fears, things that get in the way of our colleagues or our employees from being able to practice this, you can get them started. You can start doing it for them. And then everyone is kind of on the same journey together. So encouraging positive interactions between staff, listening, open and respectful dialogue. We've spoken about psychological safety in the past. One of the key concepts of psychological safety is bringing down that threat detection system. And then providing growth opportunities so that people feel valued and respected. So lead by example, start that ripple with those around you, and eventually you'll find that you're right smack in the middle of a lot of people who are also very good at this. And then everyone is more productive, everyone is healthier, better able to care for themselves, better able to care for each other, and it actually grows the empathy piece of your brain. So you will continue to improve these skills. Oh, that's important. So you may be wondering, how can I connect meaning to the most menial of tasks, right? So we talked about this in the burnout training, where really the only two things that you have to do to prevent burnout is connect meaning to your work and have healthy relationships in the workplace. Those are the key, the science says, those are the key to preventing burnout. So connecting your purpose with every minute detail of your work allows you to feel more fulfilled by it. Instead of being trapped in the never-ending cycle of trying to find meaning in your work or trying to find work that has meaning, you've got work already. Go ahead and find the meaning in what you're already doing. And then seek growth opportunities, because with every new experience, with every new accomplishment, you're naturally going to feel better about yourself. You're going to feel more positive, you're going to feel more capable, and that is the only way to overcome that learned helplessness, is to just push through and do a new thing. Get outside of your comfort zone. Cultivating curiosity is very, very helpful, especially if it's a task that you don't particularly like. If you put me in front of an Excel sheet, I'm just going to glaze right over. I have no interest in that whatsoever. But if I am cultivating curiosity, I might say, maybe Courtney's showing me how to do an Excel whatever, and I'll say, what is the formula that will do this cool thing that I've always wanted to do? And she'll show me that. And now it's not as boring, because I've got some control, I've got some agency, and I am learning how this can benefit me. So definitely cultivate that curiosity in all the things that you do, especially if you're not particularly thrilled about them. Anything you want to add on that, David?
Yeah, so one thing that has really helped me, in addition to the wonderful things that you've put out there, is really redefining what these daily tasks are to me. So there's a lot of different books and philosophies on how to grow and how to improve and how to develop as a person. And many people talk about how one of the most important things that you can do in the morning is get up when your alarm rings the first time, right? Get up somewhat early, make your bed right away, right? And if you can, get some type of study or exercise in, okay? Now here's what's amazing about that, because when you get up the very first time the alarm goes off, when you get up early enough to make your bed, when you get up early enough to do 15 minutes of writing or journaling or meditation or prayer or whatever it is that you do, including exercise, either or, right? You start off with 3 major victories. I don't know about you, but waking up in the morning for me is hard, okay? And many people will hit snooze and snooze and snooze. Snooze has become like the standard thing. Like, I'm gonna hit the snooze 7 times, 7 times 9, right? And that gives me an extra hour, right? Am I right? A little bit of hour of sleep, yeah. And I can just lay there, and I like laying there. But here, the problem with that is the science shows that you go back to sleep a little bit in between those first 2 or 3 sets of snoozes, and you actually wake up more groggy, right? And it's terrible. So what happens then? Well, when we don't do that, we win, we feel better about ourselves. And when we change our perspective on how these tiny tasks not only create victories and momentum for us, we see them as opportunities to grow and get stronger. So I have a background in martial arts. There's a saying that Kung Fu is everything. And Kung Fu just means to develop a skill. There's Kung Fu in taking out the trash. There's Kung Fu in doing the lawn and making your bed in the morning. It's cultivating character. Doing the tasks that you hate to do, those Excel spreadsheets, You can become a better person by learning to see them as a tool for personal and professional improvement. And as you cultivate that feeling, that idea, that belief that while I'm doing this, it doesn't suck, it's good. It's good for me. I'm getting stronger. You might enjoy it one day and think about how your life could change.
Absolutely.
Well, if I could get to learn how to like Excel spreadsheets, right? Like handling this report for my boss, no big deal, right? Running this meeting that I'm kind of nervous about, no big deal. Your life becomes easier because of the difficult things, no matter how small, you've changed your opinion on and forced yourself to do and think about differently.
Absolutely. And notice that everything David said, it was very intentional.
Yes.
These actions are intentional. They're thought out. They're pre-planned. You know, it's strange that for most of us, if we have a big project that we need to complete or a big paper that needs to be written or whatever it is, we generally, most of us, will sit down and start by defining what the actual goal is. What am I trying to do so that I know how to get there? And then you write your outline or at least create your steps on how you're going to get there. And yet, with something as powerful as our own happiness, we don't do that. We wake up and just are at the mercy of our day for the most part. We're just waiting to see what hits us, what comes in, and we're reacting, right? I mean, imagine if you had a big, very complicated project or assignment, and instead of doing any pre-planning, you just open your computer and wait to see what happens. I think we can all guess what's going to happen. Absolutely nothing is going to happen. Nothing good anyway. So what I would recommend is start by defining your goal. Sit down and write out what kind of life you want to have, what kind of attributes you want to have, what sort of changes that you want to make. Because if you can define those things, make them tangible, understand them, create a pathway to them, write down your steps of what you're going to do to get there, you are much more likely to get there than if you just wait to see what happens to you and react to that. So David mentioned the PERMA model a few minutes ago. I'm going to go back over, there are 5 attributes within that PERMA model, which is that framework for well-being. So the first one is positive emotions. So the more that we experience those emotions, the more we think about them, the more we remember them, we recall them, we retell them, the more ingrained those neural pathways to those emotions become in our brain. The second piece is engagement. There's probably very few people left on earth that have not heard of mindfulness at this point. A quick trick that I use, again with my children actually, is a grounding technique to be fully engaged and fully present in what you're doing, which is so hard to do. But if I can get them to go through all 5 senses, what do you feel physically right now? What do you see directly in front of you? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you taste? There's very little room in the mind to be anywhere else other than right where you are at that exact moment. And that is practice. That is practicing being present and engaged and fully absorbed in what is happening in front of you right now versus being stuck in either the past or the future, which is not helpful for right now. The next piece of the PERMA model is relationships. Cultivating supportive, nurturing relationships, social connections. You're basically creating the framework for yourself that's going to hold you up when you can't. So be intentional about what that looks like. Same thing you're doing with your own self-improvement. Write down what you want to see in your relationships. How do you want to be supported? When do you want to be supported? And what that looks like and what that involves. And then the fourth piece of the PERMA model is meaning. Having a sense of purpose and feeling that our lives are valuable and worthwhile. You can imagine what that feels like if you have the opposite of meaning. Everything feels pointless. If it feels pointless, where's your motivation? Not very high, right? or if it feels like you're just spinning your wheels. And we all feel that way sometimes. But any progress is progress. And it takes a lot of reminding ourselves. You know, I have a tendency to set astronomically high goals for myself. I don't hold anybody else to those ridiculous standards, but I'm certainly going to hold myself to them. And that is one way that I rob myself of being able to celebrate a win. I will accomplish something and I'll go, yeah, that was all right, but I can do better. Well, okay, but I need to actually appreciate the things I did right in order to do better. Because if I'm not internalizing those, I'm not growing them.
May I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to coach you in the middle of a
Please do.
training here. But I think we can all learn from this, myself included, because I do that as well. I set somewhat unrealistic goals for myself because I feel that if I do that, right, I have something to strive for, something to grow towards. If I miss, you know, if you shoot for the moon and you miss, you're still among the stars, that sort of a thing, right? But here's the thing, many times we do reach those goals, right? Because of what we're driven to do. That's another training. However, the suggestion that I have for you to consider is thinking about the things that you accomplish along the way to that almost out of reach goal that you can be grateful for, celebrate, learn from, journal about. Because as you do that, you become that person that is thinking positively, is becoming more optimistic, is rewiring their brain, and therefore are much more capable of reaching that somewhat out of reach goal that is now all of a sudden much more attainable.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Right? So there are things that are worthy of that celebration. And as you set those mini goals and celebrate them, you experience progress and therefore you experience happiness. Because we do know that setting goals means we're going to experience progress, especially if we set them up in the right way, and progress equals happiness. You get that dopamine, you get that serotonin, you get that flush of excitement, of optimism, of thinking that things can change, that they do change, and they will get better, and they will get better. And you set a new goal and you go, 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 go. Progress equals happiness. So we must set clear goals and we must celebrate the mini goals that are achieved as we get there.
Thank you for that. So David, you mentioned dopamine, and I think it might be because you were reading my mind.
No, it's because I love it.
Same. So most people, when they talk about or think about dopamine, they think about reward centers, right? We think about the warm fuzzy feeling when you've accomplished something or have some other dopamine inducing interaction. What not a lot of people realize, unless you have ADHD, is that dopamine also is the chemical responsible for motivation. So if you can't motivate to get through all of the steps that you've put in place, your plan to get towards that growth mindset, that positive psychology, that state of no threat detection, state of safety, then how do you actually accomplish those steps along the way to get the dopamine? This is where the fifth piece of the PERMA model comes into play. So the fifth piece is accomplishment. Now that doesn't mean that you have to fully accomplish the end-all be-all goal, reach total nirvana. What that means is set up both short and long-term goals within your progress, because then you've got dopamine hits along the way from on the entire path. So if you have short-term goals and you meet a goal, now you get that dopamine, and now you're motivated to make it to the next goal, the short-term goal. And long-term goals, obviously, those are the bigger payoff. You've reached those, but it's important to have both. My favorite thing about talking about the importance of long-term and short-term goals is the fact that you are practicing hope. That's all it is. And the more that we can practice hope, the more ingrained that hope becomes in our work. And that's going to give you the chemistry, the chemicals, the dopamine, the serotonin that you need to make it to your goals. and to deepen those neural pathways so that you are even more motivated the next time that you have both long and short-term goals. And we go to the next slide, please. Oh, go back one. Sorry. So the last thing that I'll talk about, and then we may have some time for a little open Q&A, is fostering a growth mindset and continuous learning both in yourself and in others around you. So if you, let's say you work very, very hard on yourself, you are practicing hope, you're setting short and long-term goals, you are defining what you actually want to achieve so that you can achieve it. What happens if you're there but no one around you is? You're not going to get those external rewards that you need. You may even be cultivating jealousy in others. It can be a common reaction for people who feel threatened by someone's success to, instead of being motivated to improve themselves, to be motivated to tear you down, because then there's the comparison is a little more level. So that is why that ripple effect is so incredibly important, to protect your own peace, because you have to surround yourself with people who have similar goals, or help them to get there, help them to have those goals. And if you're helping them practice their gratitude, asking them, hey, what was the best part of your day? What's your greatest accomplishment? What's your greatest accomplishment over the last hour? Celebrating those small wins. Then you're fostering a growth mindset in everyone around you, which peer pressure works, helps you then to continue to improve. So with that said, is there anything else you want to add, David?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Not at this time. I'm sure we're going to have some great questions, and we'll be able to answer, and I'll kind of free flow from there. But
sounds good.
Thank you for the information, Jessica. That was absolutely fantastic. Let's go to the audience, or let's go to the people we have here. No pressure. No pressure.
Feel
What are
free
some
to-
questions about what we can do to create more meaning and happiness here at work?
Feel free
And
to
in
come
life.
off mute or drop your questions in the chat, whichever you're most comfortable with. Either of you have any questions, comments?
I guess a comment or just a struggle of mine. I think in general I'm a pretty optimistic, happy person, and I find myself being very impacted by other people's, if they're a happy person or a negative person. And one of the things that I struggle with is I don't know if it's walking away from conversations or just not letting that energy seep into me. And it's not in a way where I start engaging as they engage. It's just a physical and emotional drain, right? Of where I feel like
You're too empathetic.
people can just be exhausting if everything skews to the negative.
Bless you, bless you, bless you.
So can I ask you a question? Do you feel that there's a possibility that you are perceiving danger in those moments? Danger to your happiness, danger to your mindset?
Yeah, maybe to my mindset. Not like a physical danger, but yeah, maybe happy to my mindset.
And it is a danger to your mindset, right? Experiencing that negativity and that pessimism, right, has an effect on our mental state and our outlook and our ability to think about what can happen, to be hopeful, to be optimistic. So you're absolutely right. You are in danger, right? So my recommendation is to think of two things. Number one, how do we protect ourselves internally, right? What is the language we can use to tell ourselves that, number one, this person is being negative because of trauma, because of a lack of optimism, a lack of self-development, a lack of professional development. We give people the benefit of the doubt, which allows us to not be angry towards them. I heard a phrase, once you study enough psychology and you understand why people do things, you don't get mad at them anymore. because you know, right? That is the number one thing that you can do to preserve your mental health, right, and your energetic health, okay? Have that conversation with yourself about that person, forgive, right, and let it bounce off of you. I am optimistic. I am hopeful. I know things can be good. This negativity is something that I reject, and I will move forward from here, right? And I feel bad for them, and maybe because you want to take action as well, I can offer some help later on. In the moment, then, the second part is, how do you manage the external in that moment, okay? You know what? I think, Regina, that this place is so broken, right, that they are making so many mistakes that I just think it's going to crumble all around us, and I'm just waiting for the day for it to happen. I don't even know why we're having this meeting about this whole thing. I really don't. I'm wasting my time. We're all wasting our time. Oh, my goodness, right? Okay. So, as Bradina, I'm going to say, well, I can see that you're upset, you're frustrated, you are unhappy, and you've experienced some stuff that really, I can't blame you for feeling like that. But I ask you, what is one thing that you think we can do to make a difference, to make this work? Now, in a perfect training world scenario, well, I tell you what, here's one thing, and their whole personality changes. It's not going to be that easy. They're going to say, well, I have no idea. I have no idea. Well, I know that you are talented and you've been here a long time and you're very passionate, obviously. I like to think about what we can do and what is positive and what will make a difference and what we can control. What do you think that is? If you were to tell me what one thing is, what would that be? Because I would rather spend my time thinking about what can be, what is good that we can do, than to talk about what's bad and what might not happen or what might happen that is negative. Because I feed off of good energy, and I think everybody does, and I want to shift this conversation towards something more positive.
What I love about that answer is that it was automatically an external explanatory style. So instead of internalizing the negative things that this person was saying, he immediately put it back on the person and said, you are feeling these things. It takes it out of us. It takes us out of our natural response, which is to empathize, believe. When somebody tells me everything's gone horrible, it's all falling apart, I'm going to believe them out of a safety response. Whoa, everything's falling apart, I better get out of here. I have to stop that. I have to short circuit that by putting that explanatory style back outside of myself. This is them. This is not me. And the question I love because it interrupts someone staying in the past and brings them to the present. Yes, all of these things went wrong, but what can happen now? What good thing can happen now? So it puts all of these concepts that we've talked about into practice within a very short amount of time. Good question. Thank you.
Awesome.
Sounds like you can apply this to work, to personal relationships, to what's going on with the government and everything right now. I mean, it's just such a bombardment of negativity from both sides, and you just, you have to separate yourself from that, or you just like, oh, I can't take it.
Sure. We focus on controlling the controllables, okay? Because that right there allows us to set goals, to make progress, to be hopeful, to focus on what we can do, not what we cannot have an impact on. And we utilize the psychology that we spoke of, right, and the appropriate neural pathways that are going to give us that opportunity to feel grateful, to make progress, to experience happiness, to feel like we have an impact. So focus on what we have an impact on, not what we don't, right? That's why, so I used to do new employer orientation, and we would go through our values, and we would talk about our behavioral standards, and I would talk about how it's important to take action and be a part of the solution, right? The people who come to us and say, this is a problem, it's broken, it sucks, I hate it. Oh, okay, well, I dislike having conversations like this. Do you have anything besides that? Nope, that's it. All right, cool. Well, not cool. It's not cool. So what we say to those people is, right, if you are going to say those things, right, let's make it a behavioral norm, a standard, even something that you require of people, whether it be plain and known or not. that if you come to me and you are going to complain and you're going to be negative and you are going to say what's broken, it is my expectation, right, that you have a plan to address it, right? An idea, a couple of suggestions, 1, 2, or 3, or at the very least, be willing to say, here's what's broken, here's what I don't like, here's what needs to be fixed, and I don't know what to do, but I'm willing to sit down and have a conversation about it because it needs to change, and I want to be part of that change, or at least want to sit down and brainstorm about it, because down the line, it's not only affecting us, it's affecting them, and we need to do something about that. That's way better than just sitting there in the negativity and piling it up. Request that of people. Don't demand it, but respectfully request that if they are going to do that, that they also bring a suggestion, or at least a willingness to find an idea.
So we have a question in the chat. Kathy Canham says, just playing devil's advocate, isn't it also important to validate their frustration about thinking the place is broken, in addition to trying to shift their mindset? I just think sometimes people just want to be heard. Absolutely. We should not invalidate someone else's feelings. If they're in that place, then obviously they're not in a good place. And if they're someone that we care about, we want to help. I think
it's a yes and.
Yeah, exactly. It's a yes and. But it makes me think of when you're on an airplane, you know, the disclaimer, put your own mask on first before you help someone else so that you can better help others. Same thing here. If Bradina is feeling activated, which that sounds like a trauma response, I feel unsafe because of the words this person has said. You even described physically what happens when we have that response. You're exhausted afterwards, you feel drained. Bradina's not in a place to emotionally support this other person if she's not in a good place herself. So by putting your mask on first, making sure that you don't internalize that language, making sure that you don't get stuck in the past with them, that you're in the present, helps you to be able to give the empathy and emotional support to the other person that you want to be able to give them. Good question,
Kathy, that's a great question. Thanks for joining us today, Kathy. Kathy Canham, everybody. What a rock star. I'm biased because she's a teammate, but you do have to validate people's feelings because they feel it for a reason, regardless of history or stories or whatever. They feel it, they experience it, it's true to them. But again, it's a yes and. I see that you're frustrated. Yes, you have a right to be frustrated. And I'm wondering, what is there that we can do? What else is there that we can focus on? Or are you able, right, to think about the future, right? Are we able to think about 3 things that are good in those situations that you describe are bad? Because while you're right to feel the way that you are, can we be right about what's going to be good or about what could be good? And I've got to tell you, I'm the trainer, right? One of 2. But that doesn't mean that I don't struggle with this stuff myself. I'm just as human as anybody else. I have been frustrated in this organization. I have been a Debbie Downer and a negative Ned in this organization. And I have had to have conversation with coaches and mentors and supervisors and colleagues to reevaluate, reframe, and reassess and attempt to change perception, to change the possibilities of what I might be seeing or what I might be experiencing or what's good. Because every system has good things and has bad things, has solutions and has problems. It's like a family, right? You can love your family, but sometimes you're mad at them. Sometimes you don't like them. Because I can love my family and not like one of them at the same time. Do you know what I mean? I always say this to my wife, I like you and I love you. Sometimes I don't like you. So we do have to validate people's emotions because there's something there, right? It's not that we invalidate and say, you're wrong, now tell me what we need to do that's right. It's okay, yes, and what can we do about it? What can help? What can be different? What else can be focused on that will bring more good?
Absolutely. So we've only got about 2 minutes left. That may be enough time for one quick question. If anybody wants to just come off of mute and jump right in, feel free.
I just have a comment to make.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
go ahead.
So we were talking about the positive explanatory styles and how we have to talk to ourselves in the circumstance of trauma or perceived trauma. So while we were doing this meeting, I received an email notification saying that from a compliance person, saying that there was something in the well child visit that was done which needs to be needs changes to be made. So my first response, if I hadn't heard this, would be, oh my God, what did I do wrong? How could I have done it like that? So instead, I paused and then I said, all right, there was probably there is some kind of mistake. Let me see how I can figure it out. So I think that thought was amazing for me, and that was new to me after this lecture, after this meeting. So thank you.
Look at that. Hey, we're changing people's lives. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So for me, so to really like riff off of that and say, gosh, I'm gonna celebrate that today. Right? I helped one person change. Maybe not just the moment, the day, maybe the relationship that you have with that person, or your week, maybe your weekend. My goodness, I'm so happy you shared that. Because we can be hard on ourselves, right?
Yes.
Yes,
I don't think
yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank
so
you,
if
thank
you
you.
take a couple things away, remember, if you don't remember the PERMA model, fine. All right? Look, the number one thing is the way that we think about things matters. If you accentuate and focus on the positive, you will bring more into your life. Set goals, right, and make some mini ones so that you can experience celebrations and happiness and progress, and spread not only the gratitude that you experience for yourself, but create gratitude and appreciation and happiness for others by telling them, showing them, having experiences with them. If you do those minor things, right, you're on your way. You're absolutely on your way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was good stuff.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.